Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of TBR. I'm George Binns. And if you've been following the shows for a while, you notice at the end I put in a little pitch that if you have some comments that you would like to make, we make room for you here at the table. And we've done that. And I guess this evening is Margo Jones. Welcome, Margo.
Thank you, Joe.
And what really got this discussion going was an article in the Globe a little while ago about Supreme Court decision. And it was supposedly a unanimous decision. And then the article in the Globe went on to explain what the three liberal judges were really saying. So that gets a little murky. And I guess, Margo, that got you a little concerned.
When I read this article, the judges said, we have some concerns, but a unanimous vote will get it off our table.
Yeah, so that sounds very efficient.
I'm not quite sure what their table consists of, but they were a little concerned about something so quickly being decided.
Yes. So they got this decision, and essentially what it said is Colorado cannot eliminate Trump from the ballot. So they got to put him back on. And at the same time, Massachusetts and a few other states were contemplating a similar action, and it precluded them doing anything. So Trump got on the ballot in lots of places, got lots of votes, and it looks like we're in for a replay of Trump versus Biden.
But I came in to the interest part, as George has mentioned, about Colorado not allowing a name to go on the on the ballot.
Yeah.
And as the news followed this action, 14.3, or Amendment 14, Section 3, as it later became known as 14.3,
Yeah.
Came into discussion, and I did not know what this referred to. Being from Massachusetts and having the name taken off, and my sister in Maine having the name taken off, we were alert to what was going on. But it turned out that this judgment was rescinded and the names got back on the ballot. The concern came, the return of it, when I had searched my house for my trusty little Constitution, and I can't believe that the Constitution can fit in something so tiny, by the American Civil Liberties Union.
Yeah.
And so I looked up my, Amendment 14, and I went over to Section 3. And I read it through, and I said, I wonder how many people actually know what Amendment 14, Section 3 says.
Yeah.
So I looked at it carefully, and I read it, but there were a couple things in there that I didn't quite understand. So I'm going to ask George if he would maybe explain one of the words. It's elector.
Yeah. One of the quirky things about Section 3 of Amendment 14 is they don't specifically mention the president and the vice president, only the electors of the president and the vice president. So really, 14.3 applies to the people that we elect next November to represent us at the Constitutional Convention. So we are electing electors who will represent us, and we hope that they're going to represent what we think. But the way the Constitution is written, these electors can go make any vote that they want. And that gets into another murky question.
Well, thank you for explaining that. It is indirect. You vote, and it goes to somebody who goes to the convention and casts your name.
Casts a vote.
Hopefully.
Hopefully in my
right.
at my direction.
Okay, let's find out because this is Constitution 101, and I was a previous teacher, so I'm going to use the book as my guide here. So this
Yeah.
is Section 3. No person shall be a senator or representative in Congress or elector of president and vice president
Yeah.
or hold any office, civil or military, under the United States or under any state who, having previously taken an oath as a member of Congress or as an officer of the United States or as a member of any state legislature or as an executive or judicial office of any state to support the Constitution. Recognize that this is an oath of office that all of these people have previously taken. Shall all these people, if they have engaged in insurrection or rebellion against the same, our country, or given aid or comfort to the enemy thereof. These are the people that will not be eligible. All of the above. The understanding of insurrection and rebellion. I went personally.
Well, I think you ought to finish in here that one thing is that essentially what that is saying is you cannot be
Any
one
of those offices.
Any of those offices. And then down the last sentence is one that gets into
We aren't quite there yet.
Okay.
We have to understand what insurrection
Okay.
is, because this is a situation of an ongoing trial that we hope will pay attention to the 14.3. Insurrection is the act or an instant of open revolt against civil authority or a constituted government. Rebellion, a little different. Open, armed, and organized resistance to the constituted government, an instant of this, defiance towards an authority or established convention.
Okay.
One of them is more talking about there is something going on and you join it.
Yeah.
The other is that it is organized going against something.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to point out the two differences
Yeah.
in case you get these words thrown at you about the upcoming court decision. All right?
Yeah.
We are, what I have to quick check what we're going on. Okay. We're about to get George to, I'm going to let you read the last few words, Joan.
Okay.
George, okay?
The last sentence, after it gives all these provisos of not being able to hold one of these offices, then it says,
But,
try it without the glasses. These things are only good for very long distance. Where are we? But Congress may, by a vote of 2/3 of each house, remove such disability.
may I interject just a second? Some people might not understand that the word Congress refers to the United States House of Representatives and the United States Senate.
Yeah.
So whenever the word Congress is used, it has a specific meaning for our central government,
As far as the Constitution is concerned.
as far as the Constitution is concerned.
So it really means that if you were a bad guy and they decided that you can't serve in any of these functions, Senator, Congress, so forth, if they like you well enough, they can say, okay, the Congress says, we'll overlook it by 2/3 vote, and then you can take over one of these functions.
Okay.
But the important point that I think that the Supreme Court hung on was that this ability to decide yay or nay whether you can function as one of these offices does not belong to the states. That decision belongs to the Congress. not the individual states.
So nothing has been said here about legislation other than Congress
Yes,
being a
Congress has to do it.
Congress has to do it. The it may come to people's mind that January 6th was a day of what the country probably doesn't want to remember. It was a led, I'm going to call it riot so that I don't get mixed up with my interpretation. And are all of these people who were in there unable to be, I think we're coming up to a court case that shouldn't be the deciding factor, but might be, which brings us to the very end of our thoughts, that if 14.3 is not put into action, it is the vote of the people who might be capable of keeping our government the way it is. There are consequences of breaking our amendment. It is what our country is based on.
Yeah.
And that is something that our society of today seems not to realize how important it is. And when I think that the Constitution can fit in this page, it is very carefully worded to mean something, everything that it says.
Yeah, and I think this is part of the decision that people are making, is that, well, it was written a long time ago, and if you try reading this thing, some of the structure of the wording is a little archaic, and it's a little difficult to understand. But at the same time, it is very clearly written of what you can and what you can't do. And one of the important things that I think needs to get emphasized over and over again is, you don't like the way it is, amend it. There's, 27 amendments to the Constitution so far? I don't know what the latest tally is.
You have it right on. 27 amendments.
So 27 times people have come forth and said, I don't like the way it is. We ought to change it. And
One
they did.
example is the alcohol.
Oh, yeah.
That went on,
And it went off.
and then it went off.
Yeah.
The people did have a say in taking it off.
Yeah.
But
they had
again,
a say in putting it on, too.
they have to have a 2/3 of all states
Yeah.
to take it off.
And,
And it may even be 3/4 for some issues.
And I think the other thing that needs to be emphasized, too, is that this is not something that the judges do.
No.
The judges interpret the Constitution, or they interpret what's been passed as a law as to whether it fits with the Constitution or not. So we get into a bunch of murky issues very quickly that people are accused of legislating from the bench, and lots of other stuff gets dragged into it. But I think the issue with this particular event is still a little murky in my mind, because how do you get somebody on the ballot in the first place?
Well,
Yeah.
Massachusetts discovered they took the name off, and somebody from one of the parties just put the name back on, and they didn't have a way to argue the point because it wasn't covered in their way
Yeah.
of dealing with the names.
Yeah, because they got themselves into a bind by taking the name off illegally, I guess you'd say, or non-constitutionally. And then how do you get it back on again? Well, we did it by just arbitrarily taking it off. We'll just arbitrarily put it back. And
When the Constitution says something, I am just so, that's the reason why I became interested in this. It is the lack of respect for something that is so important to our society.
Yeah. Well, it's really unique in the world that I don't think anybody else has got a constitution that is, well, Japan's got one because MacArthur made it, but that's another story. But,
The Constitution, as it's written and upheld, means that we have a democracy that the rest of the world sees and admires. Right now, with the handling of business of our world, our country to other countries, there has been an awful lot that could be done better, but we are concerned.
Yeah.
And we actually are having another country fight our battle. And our people say, don't get involved in that. If they fall, we, in a sense, have lost our sense of what democracy is.
yeah.
And it's just one of those things I'm trying right now to paraphrase the comment that got me on this road quite a number of months ago in somebody having said the last words of Martin Luther King's address, when good people stay or remain silent, bad things can or will happen.
Yeah.
So it's just simply, when good people remain silent, bad things happen. And to me, that just struck a note that, can I be a good guy?
Yeah. Well, and we get down to the issue that, okay, here was an event that got lots of people riled up, both pro and con, whether Trump should be on it or whether you can take somebody arbitrarily off the ballot or prohibit somebody from being on the ballot. And it got to the point of being a constitutional decision. Decision was made unanimously by the Supreme Court.
Which should have been done by,
Well, it has to be done by them because that's the issue involved. It's where do you define states' rights versus federalist rights, the federal rights.
all right,
And the Constitution literally says anything that is not in the Constitution that is assigned to the federal government belongs to the states. So you get into some of these issues, and the question comes down, who's in charge? Who makes the decision? And I think this is one of the things that
the muddy waters that are being tread on.
Yeah, well, the issue comes to one of, okay, somebody's got to make a decision. Who has the authority to make that decision, and how are you making that decision for just yourself, being the state, or are you making a decision that is being applied to the rest of the country? And I think this is one of the issues that hasn't been discussed well enough, that when one state arbitrarily says, oh, you're not going to be on the ballot for a federal election, as in electing a president, they're really making the decision for the rest of the country. And they have to get into the question of, do they have the authority to make decisions for the rest of the country? And that's part of this whole idea of having a federal government, not a democracy.
But when a state like Colorado made the decision to remove a name from the ballot, they were simply following Amendment 14, Section 3.
Well, they thought they were, but they really weren't,
How can you say that?
because they aren't the Congress.
Okay, I see what you're saying. All right, where's the amendment?
Yeah.
The decision of, no, it says that you cannot be hold that office because you have taken
Yeah.
oath. And they read that to mean that I read somebody had office and he did this, therefore he should not be put on the ballot. But if he wants to be put on the ballot, or the people want him to be put on the ballot, it has to go through Congress.
Yeah.
Has it gone through Congress? No?
So how to get back on the ballot again?
Ah, that's our dilemma.
Yeah.
So that's why we're here, to try to educate the people as to how important they are if the decision is made to put the name back on the ballot of somebody who has, if the courts allow this judgment to be made legally of insurrection, then it's up to the people.
Yeah, well, that gives up another question of nobody, well, Trump in particular, has not been convicted of insurrection or rebellion or anything.
But we all have seen him.
Everybody's got an opinion, yes. And that's, again, part of the problem, that there are so many opinions around, but no judgment. So can Colorado, so the question comes down, can Colorado or Massachusetts or Maine or any other state say, well, I think he might have been involved, therefore I'm going to take him off the ballot? Is that?
They are actually, the state
That's
is,
essentially
they
what.
are following what the Constitution is telling, even though
Well,
it comes down to all these other people to make a decision for their own state, and if it doesn't meet the requirement for removing Amendment 14 from the, in effect, if they make a ruling, they will in effect be taking it off of our government. And it is too precious to keep us as a democratic society, to keep it where it is.
Yeah. Well, that's where the rubber meets the road. That
So let's say that the people, regardless of any other further situation, really should address, do they want to have our country live by the laws of our Constitution that gives us so many rights of free speech and etc.? Or do they want to disband it because they think that this is a good thing for the country, to not impress the rest of the world, but to isolate us from it,
Yeah.
and be this wonderful country all by ourselves? And when
Well-
I think of the politics of the world, and we are one of them, and we have shown that we can be a leader, why is isolation so important? I don't know. When I look at the people that have suffered all the wars that are going on right now, and the Red Sea just confounds me that this country can be allowed to shoot off all that traffic that has to use, I think it's 75% of the world depends
Yeah.
upon just the
Yeah.
Red Sea for its highway from one place to another, and a country can just go and shoot at it. I mean, as a believer in justice, something's wrong there.
well,
That's not our concern, but it is our concern,
that's part of the big picture.
the big picture.
That after World War II, the United States was the last superpower standing. And for some reason or other, we decided to take over essentially Britain's position of managing the seas. And the United States Navy.
Pearl
is-
Harbor Day was our turning point.
Yeah. And well, there's a lot of turning points running through the late 30s. But the rubber hit the road on Pearl Harbor.
Yes.
Couldn't avoid it anymore.
But the road had already started.
But yeah, we had been into the Lend-Lease and all these other things prior to that. And as a result, we were slowly getting dragged into it, and essentially couldn't make a decision, so Japan made a decision for us, essentially what it comes down to. But you're right, I think it comes down to an issue again of we've got a constitution. If you don't like it, you can amend it. Ain't easy, wasn't made to be easy, but you can amend the Constitution. Done it 27 times. And as a result, we've got a document that works. Could it work better? Sure. But somebody's got to work at it to make it better. And just state by state making a decision, some keep somebody on the ballot, somebody don't. That ain't the way to do it. Again, when you're talking, I think, in a federal election for president, that either everybody's got the same position that, okay, because Trump might have been involved with the January 6th, then he shouldn't be on the ballot, or he should be on the ballot, we'll sort out January 6th later, which is really what we're doing, because that particular...
They've moved the trial from
that
month to
particular
month. Okay.
congressional review is still going on. So it gets to be a ongoing story. And I think that you get into some of these constitutional issues, like this 14.3, and you can see where, oh yeah, like I mentioned before the show, that's why the lawyers get the big bucks for wrestling through that thing, because it's not a clear statement that yes, you can be on the ballot, or no, you can't be on the ballot. It says whether you can be sworn into the office or not. So Colorado and Massachusetts and Maine are making the decision that, well, if you can't be sworn into the office, why should you be on the ballot? And that, I haven't found anything in the Constitution that gets into that. So,
But Congress has not made a vote
no,
to put the name on the ballot.
no, they don't make the vote to put the name on the ballot. They make a vote to allow somebody who has been involved in an insurrection to take the oath of office.
But Congress can put the names on with a 2/3 vote. And to me, that means
They can allow somebody to take the oath of office with a 2/3 vote.
all right, then we need, if they want to have the name on, they have to present to Congress, we want to have it on. Have they done that?
Nope.
In conclusion, if a candidate who has previously taken oath as an officer of the United States is found guilty of insurrection or rebellion, Amendment 14, Section 3 is in effect. But if all members of Congress, the Senate and the House of Representatives, by a 2/3 vote of each house, a candidate's name can be put on the ballot. This assures that all states are active in the decision.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this evening. And as I mentioned earlier, that at the end of the credits, my email address is there. If you have a comment you'd like to add, please send me an email. And if you'd like to have your space at the table to have your view presented, let me know. We can make that happen too. And thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thank you, George.